Morning, welcome back to another vid. It's going to be a pickups vid. Definitely my last one before Christmas. My last pickups vid, not my last vid before Christmas. There will be a few others. I would like to do a vlog, at least one, really. I would like to do the diary vid. I would like to do a vinyl vid. No, I'm going to do them all. I will, maybe, if I get the time. No, it'll be nice to do that, but as ever, it's a busy time of the year. And I can really tell that, not just obviously in my own life, but also on YouTube, there's hardly anyone's uploading vids. Obviously, there's a few people that I've watched, but I just mean, you know, the usual crowd. I think it's always the same, isn't it? Around about this time of the year, it's a busy time, family, friends. Yeah, it's Christmas, isn't it? But it feels weird saying it's Christmas because it's not the same, obviously, compared to when you were a kid. Because when I was a kid, you know, you get the advent calendar out, and 1st of December, obviously, and that was it. Christmas had started. But now, it's the 15th of December. Hang on, is it the 14th? 14th or the 15th. And it is Christmas, obviously, but it still doesn't really feel like it. It's kind of bizarre. But it will do, as the days push forward towards the 25th. Anyway, I'm talking nonsense. So yeah, to pick up vid, I've got 3 for the Super Nintendo, I've got 1 for the Amiga, 1 for the Atari ST, and 2... Yeah, 2 for the PlayStation 1. So really, really happy to get all these, obviously. I think gone are the days where I'd just buy a game for the sake of it. But I used to do that. I think we all did, really. I mean, I've been making videos, I think, for nearly 8 years, which is staggering. Staggering how that time has flown in, it really is. And definitely back then, back in the early days, without question, I would buy games just for the sake of it. I mean, I say just for the sake of it, I had a modicum of interest in them. I wasn't just buying any old rubbish, but I was buying stuff that I didn't know really anything about, other than it looked vaguely interesting and it was cheap. And I think it's that thing, isn't it, of especially when you start a YouTube channel, you love that kind of buzz and that feedback that you get off other people from leaving a comment and getting new subscribers and all that kind of stuff. And so you think, well, how can I keep this? How can I continue this drug or buy more games? So pickup videos used to be like once every 2 weeks with me, and now it's probably 1 every 6 weeks, I think, on average. But you know, as you get older, I think you realise that yeah, it's great to get all that feedback and that it's nice that people like watching that kind of stuff. But ultimately, it's your money; it's coming out of your bank account, so you've got to be careful in that sense. But also, you just want less clutter. You want more quality over quantity. So that's something I've tried to adhere to now for quite a few years. And obviously, every now and again, you know, you fall off the bandwagon, you get a few games and systems and stuff that you're not really bothered about. But for me anyway, as I get older, well, we're all getting older, but it's becoming increasingly obvious to what I want and what I don't want. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. I've always known what I want and what I don't want. But it's become easier for me to turn a blind eye to all the other systems, the temptations, which really I'm not bothered about. But you watch people on YouTube. It's that thing, isn't it, about being influenced. Someone will show a system on YouTube and you'll think, oh yeah, I might get that. It looks really interesting. But really you don't want it. You can do without it. But you just got to ignore people and go with what you want. And more than ever, that's kind of where I'm at. Well, in fact, to the point where I'm happy where I'm at. Never say never to other systems. But I'm going to talk more about that in an upcoming vlog. Maybe sometime next week, or the week after, or this week, whenever. Well, not going to be this week, is it, obviously, but I'll do it soon, before Christmas, before the new year. There we are. So anyway, this is a pickups vid, and we're going to crack on with it, because I've been talking for a few minutes already. So let's start off with the Amiga and the Atari ST game. We'll start off with the Atari ST. Now, this is a game I used to have. In fact, most of these I used to have when I was a kid, apart from one. But yeah, this one is a game, a friend of mine called Rob had this, and I'd never heard of it. He had it for the Amiga, but I quickly soon got it for the Atari ST, which is what this version is. The next one's on the Amiga. And I'll just show you the game. I was going to build it up, but you may not even have heard of it. Who knows? It's called Operation Stealth. Now, Operation Stealth is kind of like a point-and-click adventure by, is it Delphine? Is that how you pronounce it? Delphine Software? Delphine or Delphine. And as is the next one, actually. It's a bit of a common theme going through. In fact, there's a theme going through, and that's a poignant word for the next set of games as well, but that'll be more obvious in a second. But yeah, so basically it's a point-and-click adventure And I love these kind of games. I always have when I was a kid, like the Monkey Islands, the famous 5 game, which I've talked about many times, which goes for a stupid amount of money, even though I got it for like £2. But I've talked about that before, you probably know the story. Yeah, and I used to love those games when I was a kid, and I love them now more than ever. I love the fact that they're so engrossing, they're so immersive, they make you think. You can, sometimes they're really frustrating, of course, because you don't know what to do. And often it's a case of just complete luck, using a particular item on another item to get through to the next stage. And you're like, that defies logic. Why was I using a bat with a banana skin peel over it to open a door? How does that work? But you're playing around with things, and that's not, by the way, that's not real in this game. You don't use a bat with a banana skin to open a door. But it's that kind of illogical stuff sometimes, which is in these puzzle games, which you've got to somehow figure out. And yeah, so I really like it. It's basically, think of it like the main character you play is essentially like a James Bond kind of character. You're kind of like a private detective, I think. It doesn't really say on here, or like an agent, an undercover agent. And yeah, I'm looking on the back, but it doesn't really say it. But yeah, you can see a few screenshots on there, very vaguely, actually. And I used to absolutely love it. There's one point that I got to when I was a kid, which I've still not got to since buying the game back. And I was stuck on it. And I'm sure it was something about, like you're in caves, and you've got to go up to catch your breath to get some water out of the water. But then you've got to go under again to get underneath the other cave. And it's a real race against time. If you cock it up, you know what I mean, then you're finished. So I remember that being quite challenging. I've not yet got to this part, or that part in the game, but it'll be interesting to see when I do, whether it's easy, or whether it's really, really difficult again. Because often I'll play a lot of these old games back, and I'll do it straight away, because maybe I'm doing it now with like a 39-year-old brain, whereas at the time, in my early teens, if I was even that when this came out, well, in fact I wasn't, I was 11 or 12, 1990. So, but yeah, often back then you can't really think as logically as you can when you're an adult. But sometimes it has the adverse effect. And sometimes you play a game now as an adult and you can't do it. But you know that when you were a kid, you finished it. How does that work? It's kind of weird. So Operation Stealth, a really, really good game. If you like point and click games, which still looks really good graphically, it looks fantastic, that make you think. And if you like that kind of whole James Bond element, then you may get a kick out of that. If you're not into the point and click genre, then you're probably not going to like that. And if that's the case, you're probably not going to like this, because this is for the Amiga and it's called Cruise for a Corpse. I love the box art as well, and the colour, with the whole kind of blue, shades of blue going on. So yeah, Cruise for a Corpse is basically another sort of detective game, but this time you're more of a Poirot kind of character. You're on a cruise, on a ship, oddly enough, as you can see on the front there, with that gruesome bloke getting killed, I guess. Well, he looks dead, doesn't he? Not really alive. And yeah, so it's come. How many discs does it come on? Because it's really heavy. I have to have a look. Oh, it doesn't look like there's too many actually. There's like 5 or 6 in there, but still a fair amount. Now, what I need to get for my Amiga and my Atari ST, I've still not got one, is like an external drive, so I can double up and have 2 drives working at once. Because otherwise, it's constant taking the discs out. It's a bit of a nightmare. With that said, I kind of like it because it's authentic and it takes you back to when you were a kid. So, but it would be just for ease. It would be nice to have the external drives, certainly one, maybe even a couple of extra ones. So yeah, graphically, again, if you can even work it out, it does look pretty good. Very kind of cartoony, this one. Not that the other one wasn't, but this has got definitely more of a cartoony edge, more of a Monkey Island kind of theme to it, or style to it, kind of. So yeah, just a murder mystery, basically. And you're a Poirot character, and you've got to solve the crimes. That's that. So Cruise for a Corpse, really, really good, and I'm absolutely loving it. Despite the fact that I used to have it when I was a kid, I don't think I had the original. I think I had a load of copied discs, like many of my games were. But I did have the original of Operation Stealth. So it's good to get that back, and it's really good just in general to get back into the Amiga and the Atari ST. Relatively recently, I touched upon the fact, I think it was in a vlog anyway, excuse me, where I said I was about to buy an Amiga 600. Well, I've got it now. I've got the Amiga 600, and I absolutely love it. Maybe I'll show it and talk about it on an upcoming vid. But it's so compact and such a cool system. I remember borrowing one off my friend for a good few weeks. Every now and again I'd borrow it, actually. I don't know why he lent it to me. Maybe he had a SNES, I think, at the same time. In fact, it's the same person who had Operation Stealth, Rob, that I just mentioned a minute ago. So, Yeah, and I just remember looking at it, and it was so cool. At the time, I had my Atari ST, that same one up there that I always talk about, the 520 STE Discovery Extra Pack. And I love my ST. I loved it then, I love it now, I always will. But there was something cool about that Amiga 600. The 600 in particular, it looked kind of so futuristic. So to get one, to own one myself for the first time ever, is just brilliant, because I borrowed it back in the day. I remember seeing other people having it. But to finally get one now, late 2017, I love it. So going forward on my channel next year, but again, this is really for another vid, maybe a New Year's resolutions or a vlog or whatever. Amiga and ST is gonna be heavy. Gonna be heavy on Amiga and ST. So if you like that, great. If you don't, well, I'll get you to like it. I'll get you to like it. So next up, there's two on the PlayStation 1. Now, I mentioned the word theme a minute ago because there is a theme to this. The first one up is Theme Park. I absolutely love this game. These are PAL games. They were both on not Amiga, what am I talking about? eBay.com. Amiga.com. Amiga on the brain now. Yeah, eBay.com, so American eBay. And this one and the other game that came with it were on a buy it now for $20, which is around about 14 quid, or a best offer with free shipping. And I looked at it and I thought, well, that's really good value, to be honest. But I'm going to be sneaky, and I'm going to make a best offer. Why not? Now, I would have genuinely been gutted if I'd have missed out, if someone else would have sneaked in there and got them. But I took a risk, I gambled, and it did pay off. So I offered $14, free shipping as well, remember, which is a bit sly. $14 for these two games, including shipping. And the seller declined, well, I say declined it, they countered it with 17. And I thought, you know what, $17 plus, including shipping for these two games. This game here tends to go for more than $17 by itself, this next one. When I had a quick look on eBay UK. So I thought it's a really good deal. If I want to get both these games, I'm probably going to have to import them in the future. It'll end up costing more because of the shipping individually. It made sense. So for $17, around about 13 quid, give or take, I got these games. I'm really pleased to get them. So yeah, like I say, the first one is Theme Park. Now, I had this back in 1996, and I absolutely loved it. We all know what the spines of PAL PS1 games look like. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Building your own theme park. I didn't really play the game as such, in the sense that watching my shares and buying other parks, I didn't really do that. I just tended to start a new game every now and again and just go crazy and build a load of rides and shops and put signs up at trees and lakes and whatever else you can do in the game. And it's really therapeutic. It's actually quite difficult, though, because you very quickly do run out of money. So you have to be very careful, you know, with what you buy and when you buy it, and getting more stock in. To ensure that obviously people are continuing to use the shops, buy the ice cream, buy the coffee, buy the whatever, the burgers, the chips, the cola, etc. So yeah, it's a really good game. It still plays very good. It's a little bit clunky in places. The particularly annoying part for me is when you get little people, the customers I guess, getting stuck in certain places of the map. But it's like, how did they even get there? How is that possible? So you've got to kind of delete bits off. You've got to remove like say some roads or some tubing off like a water slide ride, and then they've got to then get out, and then you put that bit back in. So it's a bit disruptive, but that aside, it is kind of cool. Now the graphics are very basic, especially when you can go into the rides, or you can view them, not all of them, but most of them, and you're in this like kind of 3D world, and you can walk around the 3D world as well. So it looks a bit ropey because it's that 3D kind of graphic, you know, polygon look back from the mid to late 90s. But it's still, I guess, maybe nostalgic is the main thing. But I still find it really impressive in a very basic way. So I'm really liking it, and I've been on it quite a bit over the course of the last, well, I was going to say week, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And I really like it. So that's Theme Park. I still got my tea bag in the cup. That's a bit of a faux pas. Laziness, really. And then the next game, carrying on with the theme, that makes sense now, Theme Hospital, if you can see it because of the glare. Now, I'd never played this game before, but I was well aware of it, more than aware of it, back in the day. Because I think when this came out, I was working at Electronics Boutique. So I remember it being one of the games that we knew was going to be coming out. We saw it in the release schedule. And then when it finally did come out, I remember putting it out on the shelves and people buying it and all that kind of stuff. But I never did play it. I never played it back in the day, but I finally played it now. Now, I've not played it enough to have a proper opinion of it because I've literally just put it on maybe for half an hour. It's basically like Theme Park, albeit in a hospital, of course. Slightly better, came out a couple of years later after all. So there's more to do, there's more options. Maybe it's more refined in the gameplay and just the general game. But it looks good. It looks good, quite kind of, what's the word? Macabre, I guess, in a way. The humour is, dark humour in places. Yeah, it's good. If you like Theme Park, if you like those kind of strategy games, XCOM, really, that similar kind of vein to this game, then you'll probably like that. But it is quite elaborate and in-depth, the control scheme, the things you can do, the things you've got to learn. So it's not really the kind of game you'd put on for 5 minutes. You've really got to put it on for a couple of hours or so, certainly an hour, I think. But the great thing about these games now is, it's probably about 6 months ago, if not more, and I would have mentioned it on vid, but I finally picked up a PS1 memory card. I went for the longest of times without a PS1 memory card. It was ridiculous. And it was putting me off playing games like that, like Theme Park, even though I didn't have it then. But things like Resident Evil, Final Fantasy VII. I was wanting to get into these games, but without a memory card, you're screwed. So ever since getting the memory card, I've been playing the PS1 a heck of a lot more. Brilliant system. But again, maybe more of that in an upcoming vlog. Possibly before Christmas, we'll see. And then last but not least, we've got 3 Super Nintendo games. Now, this is a game that I had on the Amiga. I'm not sure if it came out on the ST. I think it did. Maybe it was a sequel that didn't come out. But I had it on the Amiga, and now I've got the game on the Super Nintendo game. On the Super Nintendo. It's a platform game, and it's Zool. I love on the back as well, $9.99. Now that, from memory, looks like it's... Oh, there it is on that side. It's a very early kind of electronics boutique sticker. I think that's one of the ones we used to have, or maybe it's Game, I'm not sure. But they were kind of owned by the same place. Eventually, anyway. So, yeah, the thing about this is I can't remember off the top of my head. I remember what it looks like, but I can't remember how the Amiga or the ST one plays. I imagine it'd be pretty similar, but I don't know how much of a direct port this is without maybe reverting to YouTube to take a look. But it's very fast. Maybe too fast is what I'd say about this. You know, you can really kind of go flying off the edges and run into enemies. Now, a lot of the enemies do drop like health resupplies and other goodies, if you like, so you can build your energy back up. But it's all too easy to lose your energy again seconds later. So yeah, the music is pretty good. The controls are a little bit fiddly. You can change them in the menu, but like the whole jump, for example, I think is it like the X button on this SNES pad, and then one of the shoulder buttons is like a spin. I mean, it's not difficult, but it's a little bit fiddly. But you can change it if you want in the options menu. So yeah, that's Zool. The music is decent, not as good as the Amiga version, but it's still pretty decent. It's like kind of more of a, again from memory, more of like a tinny version, slightly toned down, but it's still good, and it's very bright and colourful. I think I showed the back, didn't I? Yeah, I did. But you can see from there, you know, picking up all the different sweets and candies, as we'd say over here. Yeah, it looks quite nice, but I'd say I probably do prefer the Amiga version. But even then, it wasn't an amazing game in the first place. But it's decent. I'm glad I got it. That sticker on the back says $9.99. I think I paid around about 15 quid for it, give or take. Pleased to get it. Now, speaking of Amiga and ST, this is a game I had on initially the ST and then latterly the Amiga. I believe this SNES version is a sequel to that, and the Amiga and ST version was a sequel to Silkworm. So that game, which then spawned Swiv, now spawns Super Swiv on the Super Nintendo. I think, was it called Mega Force or Mega... No, maybe just Mega Swiv, I think, on the Mega Drive. Jesus. And the Super Nintendo version of Super Swiv, was it called Firepower? I did actually have it on the American SNES about 2 years ago, give or take. It would have been on a pickup vid before PAL retook over. So most, but not all, but most of the American stuff was sold, essentially. But obviously, because I'm collecting and buying PAL. But I do still grab the odd American game here and there, obviously. So, yeah, Super Swiv, it's basically a top-down shooter, really difficult. Never mind Super Swiv, it's super bloody hard. If you can see on the back there, there's always going to be glare on these vids. What can you do? So you can control the helicopter, or you can control the Jeep. Now, I think the helicopter can only shoot going forward. It can't shoot sideways, so it makes it a lot harder. Whereas the Jeep, you can shoot all around, which is handy. But it's a lot more difficult to control, and you're a lot more susceptible to, obviously, bashing into things on the ground. Whereas with the helicopter, you can avoid a lot of that stuff. But either way, it's very fast, it's very challenging, very difficult. I love, though, how you can pick up a lot of power-ups in the game, and it can really make you feel as if you're a beast of a helicopter or a jeep with all the weapons you can get. So yeah, it's good, it's hard, but Swiv was hard. Silkworm was difficult, going back on the Amiga, and in fact it came out on the Commodore 64, the Spectrum and the Amstrad, didn't it, Silkworm? So that was a difficult game. So if you like Swiv, if you like shoot-em-ups, it's one to check out. And then last but not least is possibly the cream of the crop. It's a game, this is like a Rob Fest. This is another that my friend Rob had back when it came out. Now I think he had this on the American SNES. He was one of those kind of kids who always imported the stuff. I hardly knew anyone who did that, but he was one who always did. And the game he had was Contra. So, therefore, on the Super Nintendo PAL version, it's Super Pro Protector. Now, it's in really nice condition, so obviously I paid a little bit more money than what I would rather want to. But even then, I didn't pay, what it usually goes for. It can regularly fetch over 100 quid. I didn't pay that, but I still paid a fair amount. So, yeah, basically Super Pro Protector. It's Contra 3. Is it Contra 3? Is that the one? But Contra, essentially. Just an essential game. One of the best games on the Super Nintendo, but following on from most of the games on the SNES, brutally difficult, really, really hard. I think I've got to stage 3. Really nice backdrops. It looks really cool. The graphics and the lighting look very, very nice. I think these kind of like, are they like kind of bees or flying insects or whatever they are? And it's not that they're super hard, but they're annoying. They really get in your face. And you've kind of got these two little kind of platforms, I think, where you've got to jump on, you can avoid them. Avoid these bee things or whatever they are. And if you don't do it, they can pick you up and take you up to the edge of the screen. And if you do that, obviously you've basically been captured, I should say, and you essentially lose a life. So it's difficult. It's a difficult stage, at least so far, and I've not yet got past it. But yeah, a really good game. I love how they've got the Mode 7 effects on the back. Did I show it? I kind of got them. I'll tell you what, memory's just rubbish. But you can kind of see on the bottom there, these bottom screenshots. That one is kind of like, if anyone remembers like an Alien Breed on the Amiga as well, speaking of Commodore Amiga, it kind of reverts this kind of over-the-top, overhead view, and as opposed to the side-scrolling thing. So it kind of mixes it up a little bit, which is nice. And then you get these kind of going through on a motorbike kind of scenes, which are good, but difficult to control because of the big sprites. So it mixes it up. I really like how it does that. But yeah, it's a game from my youth, Super Pro Protector, and yeah, I got to stage 3, and so far I can't get any further because it's hard. Simple as that. What I may do going forward, I don't want to put any promises on it, even though I've promised before, is I may do a gameplay vid of not just of this game, but of most, if not all, of the Super NES games that I've got. And yeah, I'm just going to figure out how to do it, because I'd like to obviously kind of show the game and the box and all that kind of stuff, and then do the gameplay. But do I do the live commentary? That could be a disaster. Or do I do like talking over the top of it? But then I don't want it to come across as like as if I'm some kind of professional reviewer, because it won't be a review. I don't know. I'll figure it out. I mean, I've done gameplay videos before, so it's nothing new. So yeah, I'll figure it out. But either way, I'm really pleased to get that. So the SNES collection is coming on very, very nicely. I think I've got around about 60-something, I think, which is good. Now, most of them, or many of them, have been picked up in the last kind of couple of years, but some of them go back about 10 years. So it's not like I've just started buying these games. But they used to be once in a blue moon purchases, and this last year or two especially, they've kind of really come on big time. So what I may do, and I did hint upon this, in fact more than that, I think I promised it last year. I think I promised I'd do a Super Nintendo collection vid, and I didn't do it. So I may do it this year, if I remember. But, I mean, if I'm honest, part of me doesn't want to do it, in the sense that I don't want people watching it thinking, what, you're showing off? Well, obviously I'm not showing off. There's people with way, way, way bigger collections than this. Another Alex, Nintendo Arcade, did his recently. It's got like 150 games. And I know he wasn't doing it to show off. But some people perceive it that way, don't they, on YouTube? But what can you do? You can't please everyone. There's always going to be someone who's going to be negative. So if I do that collection vid, it's, don't look at it in a negative way. It's just me showing you what I've got because I love the system. Because I used to have it when I was a kid, and that's all. That's all it is. But yeah, so we may do that around about Christmas time. We may not. We'll see. Anyway, that's it for now. I'll have more videos before Christmas, certainly before the new year. Until then, thanks for watching. See you later.